Okay, so to review what we've seen today, we started from the observation that the so-called imperial capitals show something different from previous version of the epigraphic Roman capitals. In particular, the two differences that we highlighted were the contrast, the presence of a visible contrast, and the second thing that we noticed was the presence of serifs. So once again, we can say that imperial epigraphic capitals have one contrast and two serifs. Okay. As a consequence of contrast, we saw that we can describe the rotated axis visible on O as a feature that is characteristic for these letters. Now, these letters are the base for our uppercase. So if you look at serif typefaces and you observe how they are drawn, you can see that part of them present a certain amount of contrast that can be medium or high or very high, and they show also the presence of serifs. So the contrast, as we have described it, is the difference between thin and thick. To be more precise, it is the relative difference between thin and thick, and serifs are a kind of termination of strokes that can be both horizontal or vertical, depending on the stroke they are attached to. So we explained this with what I have called the brush model, or maybe the flat brush model that explain the presence of contrast with the nature of the brush that leave a full trace in one direction and a thin trace on the other direction. So we can say that the thickness of strokes depends on the direction of the brush. Now, we also explained serifs as exit strokes and starting stroke. So that when you start painting, you start from here, you go in this direction, and changing the direction, you obtain a shape like this. Then you need to add another stroke to make the serif symmetrical or quasi-symmetrical, almost symmetrical. Okay? With this in mind, we can devise a method for drawing. And understanding shapes. Okay? This method consists in mimicking the effect of the brush. The other method is to use an actual brush. To do this, we can use this technique of using small lines that represents the front of the brush as it moves along the path. Again, you keep the direction of these small lines constant as much as you can, and you keep the length of each small line equal. You have a sketch that in some way resembles that of a letter. So after you have this rough sketch, you can refine it like this. To obtain a consistent shape. You can also simplify this by just by working in this way. After a while, you get used to this method of drawing, and it can be useful to understand the contrast model based on the brush, okay? Or the broad nib pen, that is almost the same. Just for reference. Calligraphic pens like this exist to reproduce the letters from Roman letters to Middle Ages and Renaissance letters. So it was the way in which they wrote for centuries, and before the modern period, they were done with the feather of a bird cut in a way that is similar to this. The fact is that, oops. Nah. When you use these pens, okay, when you use these pens, you have a broad edge that leave a trace that is quite thick in one direction, but if you go in a direction that is parallel to the cut, you have a very thin line if you are good at using the pen. Okay. Now, we can use these methods to study the distribution of full strokes and thin strokes. And can be useful for Roman capitals or in general letters that shows a certain amount of contrast. Now, we also saw another method for drawing that that is not based on the pen, on mimicking the pen. It just starts with the skeleton of the letter, and then it keeps adding layers of lines around the skeleton. And in this way, you have the freedom to gradually shape the black shape of the letter. Here, the skeleton is the ideal line you follow when you move the pen. Okay? So it is the ideal line, the abstract line, the trace of the movement. Okay? Clearly, as a disclaimer, I have to say, when I explained serifs in this way, you must have noticed that the way serifs are formed using a pen or a brush is not with just one stroke, just one movement, but they are the effect of several movements that intersect. So to define a nice letter with all the the things that make a letter a capital letter, you are supposed to use different strokes, more than one strokes. Okay, so the definition of the actual shape of your serif cannot be derived by these techniques only. This technique, this method, is good for understanding where the weights are located around the letter. Then you have to refine your shape, and you have also a lot of possibilities, and you also have to decide the direction that gives to the letter their particular mood. And the other way of drawing is looking at the interrelations between the empty part and the black part, so positive and negative. This one, we will call it progressive layers, because you add layers and layers around your bones until you have the real image that you want. And this one is about negative and positive. Okay, again, talking about the R, we can see that the R is composed by one closed shape and another open shape. This is the relation of black and white, reversed, okay? So you can alter this, for example, by collapsing the two shapes. Until you have a shape of some kind that you may like or not. By the way, it can be a method for studying the properties of the intersection of white and black, okay? Okay. So until now, we have this parameter that can be exploited to generate different letters or letters that looks different. Okay. We have the weight of letter and the contrast. Okay. Weight is defined by the relative dimension of length and thickness of the stroke. So that, let's say you have why? Okay. Let's say that you have your two-line system that define capital letters. If you draw different eyes, okay, this eye, this is the thickness, let's say thickness 1, thickness 2, thickness 1. Okay, they are different. Obviously the ratio between thickness and height gives you the weight of this letter. So the same letter can be very thin, very light, or can be very bold. Okay. Then the other variable that we have is contrast. Contrast is better seen when you have a certain weight. For really light, very light weights, the amount of contrast is barely visible. As you draw bolder weights for your letters, you see that you have more room for playing with contrast. So let's see. This is an art with very low contrast. But you can draw the same, more or less, same structure. With more contrast, okay? So we have this other variable that is contrast. That can vary in this way. So we now have these two dimensions that we can manipulate to have different versions of the same letters, or to generate new ideas for letters that are not exactly the classical Roman capitals. In reality, we already mentioned another dimension, another variable that can be used to create different letters. It is the width of the letter. Okay. Okay, so our A, let's take the A as a reference. Can be like this. Can be like this, or can be like this. Again, the relative width, we are talking about relative width in comparison to the height of the letter. So if you consider the box, the way the letter is inscribed in, you can see the difference. We have the width that goes from low to high. We use terms like compressed, and expanded. Okay? Sometimes we use also condensed. Usually condensed is less compressed than compressed, expanded or extended. These are synonyms of extended is more or less a synonym for expanded. By the way, what it is important is the fact that if you compress letter, you get a different look for your letters, and also if you decide to draw an A compressed in this way, it is normal try to compress all other letters. So even O at this point should be an ellipse, quite tall compared to the normal O or the extended O. Okay. Maybe I simplified too much for contrast, because we do not only have the amount of contrast, but also the model of contrast. As we will see, the same letter can be designed in a different way, assuming the fact that the pen or the brush is not hold in the normal way, but rather more vertical. And we saw that in this case, the model is, and the distribution is different. Because we have completely different relation between vertical and horizontal lines. Okay. So you can also try to explore the variation that you can obtain by modifying the way the weights are distributed on the letter. Okay, my suggestion for you, your assignment, let's say, is to try to draw the letter we already studied today, this one at the end of exercise B5. Okay, try to study this and try to change one of these variables. In particular, I suggest to start by drawing the letter as they are with this contrast, this amount of contrast, and then try to draw a version where the contrast is removed. Okay, so the strokes, the width on the letter is more or less homogeneous. Instead of having a thin leg and a thick leg, and you will have a constant or more or less constant weight on all parts. But I suggest to do this not by removing weight from the thick parts, but by adding weight to the thin parts. Okay, so the letter at the end will be a bit bolder than the original. It is always better for me, at least in this moment, to try to draw bolder or slightly bolder letters than to focus on thin and very lightweight letters, because with more weight, you have more space for studying the relative position of things, the distribution of weights, or the connection between parts. If you draw a very thin line, you don't have space for moving points or defining details. So try to redraw these letters by removing contrast, but not removing weight from the thick part, but by adding weight to the thin parts. Okay, and try to make this letter without apparent contrast. So they should be almost monoline, at least at the eye. Then, if you want, you can try to go in the same direction a bit more and keep adding weight to the thin part until the thin-thick relation is inverted. So the parts that here are thin become thicker than the thick part. Okay, just say if I look at the O, you add weight in the thinnest part, you obtain a homogeneous shape. Then if you keep adding, this top and bottom part starts becoming heavier than the lateral parts. Okay, and try to see what it means for different letters. By different, I mean letters that are structurally different. So O and H. O is round, H is very square. Or O, A, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Okay, that's it. See you next Friday. And okay, bye. Do you have any question?
When we do this exercise, we have also to stay with the negative, positive.
No, at this moment, no. Next week we will do free exercise on positive and negative. But I'd like you to continue playing with these letters and do these variations on letters.
Yes, I mean, also I can find the PowerPoints.
The link for the classroom, the code for the classroom, yes. If you are not in the classroom, you have to enter, because I track your, okay, this is the code. Other question? Okay. So I start by